Just to give you maybe a little appreciation for United Producers, I'll go through this really quick. This is our mission statement. We provide marketing solutions that enable sustainable future for our cooperative members and end users. One thing, I put this up here, this what changed this last year with our board, and the addition in there is the end users. The industry in general has been based on, I won't say competition, but almost adversarial relationships through the years. And the inclusion of the end user really is significant for our business on a lot of different levels, and one of them has to do with animal care and the movement of livestock all the way from the farm into that end user. We are a farmer-owned cooperative. We're controlled by a 17-member board of directors, and we have a member elected delegates out of each of our geographical districts. We have 16 districts. We got one at-large director, and that's our board of directors. 3 key business units: livestock marketing, credit services, risk management. We're headquartered here in Columbus. We got 130 full-time employees and a little over 300 part-time employees. And this is our footprint where we're located. We have facilities in 7 states, handle about 2 3/4 million head of livestock, and that's cattle, hogs, sheep, and goats. Operate nearly 40 auctions and collection points throughout this 7-state area. So that's a pretty significant footprint and a large number of animals. When you start talking about livestock animal care, this issue has been around obviously for a number of years and really came to the forefront as we started seeing state initiatives to define how our production practices worked across the country. But our board adopted a policy and a resolution back in 2009 dealing with animal care and how we need our employees to address that. Our employees, all of our employees, and even our non-livestock handling employees, our office staffs, all of them have to go through animal training. There's video, hands-on training, and then ongoing refreshers on an annual basis with our employees on the proper handling of livestock. We do require our employees also to sign a policy statement in the safe and responsible treatment of animals. That is not up for debate with our employees if they don't sign it, and that includes our part-time employees that they will not be employed. In our employee handbook, there's guidelines as far as animal handling. So we have elevated this extensively over the last 7 to 8 years with our employees because we understand the impact it has on us if we have problems in our facilities. We do the in-house and third-party audits and assessments primarily through LMA. We appreciate their efforts in taking us on many years ago at this point. And as Kristen said, that it involves employee evaluations as well as facilities. The facilities are an issue. When you go around and you see a lot of whether they're collection points or auction facilities, we haven't seen a lot of new facilities being built in recent years. There's some out there, and one being built just south of us. But in general, these facilities have a lot of age to them, and there's a lot of cost in maintaining those facilities. A lot of things that we know today in the movement of livestock that we didn't know probably 30, 40, 50 years ago when some of these facilities were built. So being able to go in and renovate and upgrade and change those facilities becomes quite costly, but it is one of those things that you got to continue to evaluate and assess on an ongoing basis. We are actively involved in all the quality assurance programs. We have certified advisors and trainers on staff, and again, that's just an ongoing addition to what we do in-house is working with our trade associations and commodity groups and making sure we're delivering on what their expectations are as well. As far as challenges, and this is probably where I spend most of the time, but maybe get some questions in here. But, as we deal with slow and impaired livestock, that is an issue. As Kristen pointed out, and I didn't hear all of her comments, but, the livestock that comes in our facilities, we have to deal with. And if it hasn't been properly cared for or treated, transported into our facilities, we do have issues. When you have an animal that is moving slow, that it's impaired, what do you do with it? Obviously we have policies as far as down livestock goes, but it's that off quality, that slow one that you have to deal with. Anymore, what we typically do in our facilities is not even move them through the cell ring. And we ended up selling them out of the pen and have pens that can accommodate the animals and move them on a minimal amount in our facilities. But as you do that in a business, and when we work on a very thin margin, there's additional cost associated with that. And then you got the added luxury of, if the person who brought that animal in sits up in the cell ring, they don't see their animal go through the cell ring, what do you tell them? How do you convince them you're still going to have competitive bids if you take the buyers back or you sell them out of the pen, but you have to deal with that side of it. So that is a challenge for the industry and an issue that we have to deal with. Obviously, the down livestock we don't accept, but it's still an issue because when you bring them in, and even if it's down on that trailer, then understand most of the livestock, the owner is not the one hauling them in. It is a trucker. When you tell them you got to turn around and take it back, it doesn't work. Roger knows what I'm talking about. So what do you do with it? Well, our policy is we will euthanize it there, and we have euthanasia standards, obviously, not just in Ohio, but throughout all of our markets. But we have to deal with that. And, that opens the door for a lot of other issues. Again, the owner, well, she walked on the trailer. How come she wasn't able to walk off when she got to the market? The person that just happens to be there, as Kristen said, our facilities are public areas. So how do you deal with those? So we have to make sure we have these policies in place and all of our employees understand how do we deal with those. Put up the transportation, and that I may go down a little different path if I talk about that and what some of you are thinking. But transportation of the livestock is an issue for our markets on a lot of different levels. We got one, of course, we're talking about some of the hours that some of these truck drivers can spend in a truck in drive time is going to be an issue that the industry has to deal with. We have issues even with our processors. Livestock are scheduled or supposed to be delivered, and they have to sit on the truck 2 or 3 hours at the plant because they can't get unloaded. We have situations where the plants have a breakdown. You got livestock in transit. What do you do with it? Okay, we get phone calls to drop livestock at our facilities. Okay, opens up a whole other area of liability and concerns and issues in there. But probably the biggest one they're concerned with is more in the hog side of our business than on the cattle side is when we can't get them unloaded. When it is 95 degrees outside and humidity is 100%, and we have a truck show up at a plant and can't get unloaded for 2 hours. Now they'll send them out, drive them down the road. But these are going to be issues that we have to deal with. Okay, we're seeing the plants work with us trying to address these issues, being better as far as scheduling times and adhering to those times. So if somebody shows up early, if their time isn't till 12 o'clock noon and they show up at 10 o'clock, they're not going to get unloaded because we got other people scheduled to be there at 10:30, 11:30, and so on. If they don't hit that window, then they go to the back of the bus, so to speak. So these are issues that are going to be ongoing in there. We've seen a lot of changes with our trucks and even the technology in them, whether it's misters and so on, to manage the environment that the animals are in transit. But these are going to continue to be issues for us to deal with. Employee awareness, okay, and Kristen alluded to this. Our employees have to know what's going on around them, not just for the livestock, but people. Okay, is there a new face? Is there a new person up on that catwalk? When they have their phones out, are they actually talking on the phone or are they videotaping you? So employee awareness is a must in here in dealing with these issues. Again, as much as we train, educate our employees, when they're down there and they're moving livestock, sometimes the livestock doesn't do what you think it should do or expect it to do. So you have to be prepared for that. There's always something. If somebody wants to make an issue out of something, if they are taping you on the video, they're going to see something that somebody will question. So our employees have to be aware on an ongoing basis and all the time. Education of our producers and obviously our truckers, as we already talked about. Animal care handling starts at the farm. We have to deal with what is brought into us. So the better we can prepare, educate our members, our producers that are bringing livestock into us, the better we're going to be able to perform our job when they come into us. The challenge we have, and this came up in the ID session here a little bit ago, we have a lot of producers that this isn't their primary income. Most of our producers, this isn't their primary income. So we have to deal with the individual that just has a few pigs, a few cows out on the farm for other reasons than economic reasons. Okay? And so they look at things a little differently. It's hard to educate them when they only have that cow out there to keep the pasture eaten down. So but we have a challenge to continue to do that. Perceptions. Again, this is back to the general public coming into our facilities, how we handle livestock, how we move livestock, and just really the way some of the times our employees are dressed and the way they engage with people. If we have employees that do not engage with that person that they've never seen before, that doesn't go well. It doesn't send a good signal. We don't expect our person unloading livestock on the back dock to be out talking like the young man this morning and talk at breakfast, but we do expect them to engage, our customers and be polite and, understand who they are, because we're caretakers of their livestock. And if they're not bringing livestock in, we want to make sure they have a good experience while they're in our facilities. The last item here, complacency. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, is Ernie said, I spent a short period, about, I'm not sure, right, 4 or 5 years with the Ohio Farm Bureau. And we'll talk tomorrow about the creation of the Livestock Care Standards Board in Ohio. I've been dealing with animal care issues for quite some time. My position when I went down to Farm Bureau back in 2009 was heading up what we refer to as the Center for Food and Animal Issues, and Dr. Dorman worked with me and Roger very closely on that effort. But it was all about animal care, animal handling, dealing with public perceptions. And, I left there in 2013. We're now sitting here in 2017. I got to be honest with you, I haven't really thought about this issue a lot in the last couple of years. I gotten complacent. It was kind of nice to go back and kind of refresh myself of what all we've been through, here in Ohio and across the country. But it is an issue that we can't get complacent about. I even preparing for this and going back through, I had to go back and ask, okay, now, what is this document we're having our employees sign? Okay? I stood up here and told you they're required to sign it, and I'm standing here telling you I had to go back and reread it because I'd gotten complacent with it. Okay? We can't afford to do that. The office has already gotten 3 emails from me this morning to make sure we have one in everybody's personnel file that's signed. Because I assure you, we probably got somebody we missed out there. So complacency is a big issue, and one that we got to continue to not allow ourselves to be complacent, because even though, especially here in Ohio, we have our Care Standards Board, it's in place. Tony's done a great job with that. Everybody's involved with it's done a great job with it. But our average producer out here in the country, it's not an issue. I don't want to say we kept HSUS out of the state, but we dealt with the issue. Most people felt, well, that's something we dealt with in 2009 through 2012, 13 when we got our standards in place. And, now it's a non-issue. Well, it's not a non-issue.